Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the record.
For the record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you. The record. Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the record.
The record. Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Orit Connor.
Good morning and welcome to For the Record. Whether you're here in the Cayman Islands or whether you're listening overseas via the web, For the Record is a show produced by Radio Cayman specifically for you, and it is geared towards keeping you abreast of issues as they arise and play out on the local, regional, and international scene. I am your host, Orit Connor, also known as OC, and you can join me on For the Record every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7:30 a.m. until 9:30 a.m. Our phone lines are always open, and there is always someone waiting to take your call. In this case this morning, Susan is there waiting to take your calls, and she has that beautiful voice that you will easily recognize as well. So we can be reached on our toll-free number, which is 1-800-534-8255 or 949-8037, also 949-6990. And of course, if you don't like to talk on the telephone, then you can call us. You can email us, at For the Record, one word, For the Record at candw.ky. I also want to remind you of our sponsors. For the Record is brought to you by Champion House Restaurant 2 and Champion House Cafe. Champion House Restaurant 2 is located on Eastern Avenue, and Champion House Cafe at 1 Butterfield Place, formerly Comart. Champion House is a family-oriented restaurant where locals dine, and I always add, where others dine as well. And we have another sponsor along with us, and that sponsor allows For the Record to be brought to you. It is the Auto Spa on Godfrey Nixon Way. And you can stop by Radio Cayman or the Auto Spa and ask for your $5 saving coupon for your next full-service wash. So the Auto Spa on Godfrey Nixon Way, and that $5 savings. $5 these days, huge saving. Several things you can still buy for $5. You can't get a gallon of gas for it, but several things that you can buy for $5. My guest in the studio with me this morning, we have the devil himself, Mr. Ivan Farrington, and Captain Paul Hurlston. We expect Mr. A. Steve Macfield to join us in the studio as well. He's here, I'm told. He just tapped on the table. My peripheral vision is affected. Mr. A. Steve Macfield is here as well, and we will continue our conversation with you about seafaring in the Cayman Islands. And we have some new revelations for you today as well. Captain Paul, who's that repository of knowledge, has so much that he can talk about the Websters and point out to us that we talk about National Boat, but National Boat wasn't necessarily the first shipping company in the Cayman Islands. So we will be talking about that, and we expect you, as usual, to join us in the conversation. Let's take a quick look at the headlines before we go any further. Voting change, one step closer, and if I get an opportunity, I will mention that. I know Mr. Macfield, will want to join in that conversation as well. But just to say that we have now gotten through one stage in the Legislative Assembly, a stage where many people thought, and the government disagreed, that there was no need to bring the motion to the Legislative Assembly, that all was necessary was for the Premier to request that the Governor impanel an Electoral Boundaries Commission and move from there. Be that as it may, we now get an opportunity in the Legislative Assembly's debate to see those who are in support of single-member electoral districts and one man, one vote, because they have now voted And we saw where 12 members on the government side voted for it. We saw where the two independent members, MLA Arden McLean and MLA Ezard Miller, abstained from voting despite the fact that they support the concept. But there was disagreement in terms of the how the motion should be brought. So in understanding their abstention from voting, it does not mean that they no longer support the effort and the proposal. It is just the way that it was brought. We knew from the get-go, from the onset, that the leader of the opposition was not in support of it, and we saw in the case of the deputy leader of the opposition, I believe that he was absent, and Captain Eugene Ebanks voted against it. So we know the positions that people have taken on it. What we now need to do is we now need to move forward, and I'm sure that the governor will, in a timely fashion, appoint the commission. That will probably be, again, a subject for debate as well. And I've pointed out to you before that the governor, acting in her own discretion, will appoint the chairperson of the Electoral Boundaries Commission, and the Premier gets the opportunity to appoint one, and the leader of the opposition gets the opportunity to appoint one as well, and we will see where that takes. Then once the report comes back from, and recommendations come back from the Electoral Boundaries Commission, we would expect that there will be a lot of politicking again after that period in terms of what the recommendations are, what will be accepted. There has always already been the debate as to whether or not we will see an increase in the membership of the legislature, whether or not we will go to 19 members. All of that, will be decided. What I would encourage you, our listening audience, and the voters, those who are registered to vote, to engage in the conversation. Go to your district meetings. We don't want you to say afterwards, "Oh, they brought this upon us and we didn't know about it." Go out there, talk to the commissioners, discuss it. We want to do that in a timely fashion also, because we here in the Cayman Islands have a tendency, when we get an opportunity to debate things or to be involved in a discussion, we don't do it. And then when the time frame reaches, then we say, "Oh, can we have we need to have an extra 3 months because we didn't get an opportunity to do this. We didn't have enough time." We need to do it in a timely manner, because this will need to be brought in the 2017 general election. So we need to be way ahead of ourselves, get this done, get the public educated towards it, and everything else. Legislation has to be brought in place. We have heard the supervisor of elections saying that they're prepared. They will be ramping up their efforts in relation to the registration of electors, and that is my next point to you, our listening audience. If you are not registered, get out there and get registered. Once you've reached the age of 18 and you fulfill all of the requirements, get out there and get registered, because if you want to have a say in how this country is run, then you need to be able to vote, because that is where you get to have the ultimate voice, the yes or no at the ballot box. So you need to do that as well. Let's look at some of the other news articles. Caymanian Compass, fees necessary for waste collection outsourcing. Abolition of multiple government agencies proposed. And then we see in the Cayman News Service, where the head of the civil service is saying that the government rationalization and the cutting of jobs is no panacea for government's issues. Privatization, not a panacea. We have the rationalization report now. We will be studying it. We will be looking at what the recommendations have been made in that as well. But we also want to caution the government that people's lives, livelihood, their sanity is at stake when they know or when they believe that their jobs are threatened. So while it's going to take the government time to study the report, consider the recommendations, and decide which moves they're going to make, we can't have people hanging on a limb. Staff need to know their morale will dip if they in any way feel that their jobs are being threatened. And we know how scarce some jobs are here in the Cayman Islands at this point in time. So it's extremely important for the government to make decisive moves in terms of moving this forward, making decisions, letting people know so that they have a level of comfort available to them. We hear talk about Radio Cayman, for instance, and you, the listening audience out there, need to show the government and others how important Radio Cayman is to the Cayman Islands as well. We will certainly be harping it on here, but we need to see that. I hope all of you have been listening to Radio Cayman and the programs. We heard last night we had the production of In the Eye of the Storm. Beautiful, beautiful production done by Radio Cayman. Interviews with many people. And of course, Radio Cayman's Cayman Islands Retro, the Ivan Experience. That will be coming on at 3:30 tomorrow, hosted by Mr. Loxley Banks as well. There are some other things that took place, and I will mention them later on, but I don't want to dominate the show by talking too much. So first of all, gentlemen, I want to say good morning and welcome to For the Record.
Good morning.
And I'm told that we have one caller on line already, an early bird, so we're going to take that caller right away. Caller, good morning and welcome to For the Record.
Morning, OC number one from the block. I don't know who your guess is.
Morning, number one, and we have Captain Paul Hurlston, Mr. Steve McFeel, and the devil, Mr. Ivan Farrington.
Well, all right, tell him the guy the devil from the block, yeah. I just want to pass this on to all of what's going on out there. I just wish this government would stop their foolishness instead of trying to sell out the Cayman Islands. Up until the very schools they want to talk about, at a place like Radio Cayman, where I sat down and heard that lovely program last night. Who said they can put it on next time?
It will be rerun again tonight, and then Loxley has another show tomorrow at 3:30, which is called Cayman Islands Retro, the Ivan Experience.
Yes, sir. What I meant to say by that, who said we'll ever hear anything like that again?
That's true, yes.
That's what I meant by saying that.
Yeah. If you don't have Radio Cayman, believe you me, all of the other commercial radio stations over there, they're in it for the money. Now, we have seen politicians as well as government officials create many white elephants in this country where money has been spent, and at the end of the day, we got nothing for it. We're getting a lot from Radio Cayman. So, we paid out a lot of money to people for nothing or for somebody else's misdeeds. We still don't know how much we paid Kernahan, but we've paid money for others' misdeeds. Radio Cayman is a sound investment.
That's right. That's one of the soundest things they got here, because you don't have nothing sound up the glass house. And the second thing I want to say is this. They were having some vote last night. I heard them about this split division and things like that. How come I never hear the Speaker of the House vote?
The Speaker of the House isn't allowed to vote. She's there to really to preside over the conduct of business in the Legislative Assembly, and as a result of that, not allowed to vote. But I'll let Mr. McFeel expand on that to you, because he's the constitutional expert around him. Mr. McFeel, can you?
Well, the Speaker would be like a referee. And you do need a referee in the House, as I can tell you. So the Speaker's like a referee. She keeps the balance in the House. She keeps order of the order of debate, and so she's not allowed to vote unless there is a tie in the House, and then she would be able to cast her vote to break the tie. But she's not allowed to vote under the Constitution. And one of the things that I think that was a sort of a policy before was that the speaker should come from the outside of the house. I think that was one of the policy, so that she could be completely impartial. And in other jurisdictions like in England and Canada and New Zealand and Australia and all those other places, the speaker would come from a constituency that she doesn't have to have opposition in that constituency. That would be agreed between the parties that are vying for the seats in the House. The speaker then would not have to get into trust and the kind of debate and running for politics, and so that her constituency would be taken care of by both the opposition and the ruling government, and so that she's not controversial, and so that she can be impartial. So the speaker really is like a referee. Like when you hear about the referee in the boxing ring, the speaker would be like the referee in the boxing ring. Now, let me just. You still there, number one?
He's gone, but you can
Yes.
continue for a
Now,
listening audience.
One of the things that, and I was listening to the other radio station talking about some of the same things about the report. When I was driving down here to the station, one of the things that I really, really cannot understand is why would the government want to sell off the only government radio station in the country. The government doesn't have a television station, but why would the government want to sell off its mouthpiece? Why would the government want to sell off the public radio that
Provides
that
a community
provides
service.
a community service to the people? And another thing, why would the government want to sell water? I was reading some articles the other day by Senator Kennedy, Robert Kennedy's son. He states, and I agree with him and I concur with him, that one of the kind of national wars that will be fought in the future is about water. About water. States will be fighting against each other about water. And why would we sell water? I mean, if I remember when the government owned they used to call it the power plant then, the electric plant. The government owned that, and the government sold that, and we see what happened to that now. It is one of the most expensive utilities in the country. And so why would the government wants to sell water? Sell a water company? I mean, if people can't eat now, and if they can't afford electricity, they would also not afford water. Can you imagine people going to bed and can't find food to eat and can't find water to drink because the water will be so expensive that you will not be able to buy it? It's a nonsensical thing. I just cannot believe that these people would sit down and come up with a solution like that.
Number one, you still there?
Yes, I'm listening.
Okay, good.
But you can't expect them because they do not have to buy water.
That's right.
They already have all the water they need to use. And if you don't have any water, they can put up gates so that you can't get in to get their water. Right. You can't get in to get their water. And I can tell you, that is something that I would be up the streets marching against.
Yeah, why don't you go run for premier?
Well, this country is a very funny place. If you want certain things, you have to conform to certain people. And I am not a person that can be bought. I am not for sale to anyone. And that doesn't get you elected easily.
Just one other thing, remember, tell the put you in because you know what you're saying.
Yep.
Well, I agree with you 100%. They're just giving away, selling away, doing everything to the Cayman Islands. Listen to this company, that company, water gone, this gone, school closing, school close out, sell out, everything. They're just destroying the country. I really thought better than that.
And one of the dangers also that you do not want the communications media to fall in the hands of one person. We have or one entity. We have seen and we have experienced a monopoly before in the form of cable and wireless.
That's
and
right.
we knew what it took us to
That's
get
right.
out of that, and we saw the difference when another competitor was brought in. We see now the acquisition of Westar TV by one company, and we saw what has happened with that already in terms of the loss of jobs. I was reading the Royal Gazette, the Bermuda newspaper, and what Mr. Frey said to the Bermudans is no jobs will be lost in Bermuda, but yet they consolidated here and we ended up with at least, I think, 5 job losses here in the Cayman Islands. So we have to be mindful of all of that. And when you're in control, caller, when you're in control of the media, then you are in control of everything, because you then determine what the public hears, what the public reads, what the public will see.
Right, because you feel you can put what you want there.
Okay. All right. Number one, we're going to have to go to a break for the sponsors, but with our sponsors. But I'll be talking a little bit more about the BRAC as well, and what government should do when the 10 years roll around after Hurricane Paloma hit Cayman BRAC as well, because we did a big thing here, and we're doing a big thing in terms of Hurricane Ivan. And of course, today is the 10th year anniversary of when Ivan hit the Cayman Islands. So, folks, I want to remind you that For the Record is brought to you by Champion House Restaurant 2 and Champion House Cafe. Champion House Restaurant 2 is located on Eastern Avenue, and Champion House Cafe at 1 Butterfield Place, formerly Comart Supermarket. Champion House, of course, is a family-oriented restaurant where locals and others dine. And, of course, For the Record is also brought to you by the Auto Spa on Godfrey Nixon Way. You can stop by Radio Cayman or the Auto Spa and ask for your $5 saving coupon for your next full-service wash. And again, we want to say thank you to Champion House. Thank you to the Auto Spa for being our proud sponsors of For the Record. Captain Paul, we're going to hear a message from our sponsors as well. I thought I was giving a message, but we're going to hear from them also, because we have some commercials that we've produced for them. Go right ahead, Susan. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. I'm your host, Dorrit Connor. My guests in the studio with me this morning, we have Mr. A. Steve McField, we have Captain Paul Hurlston, and we have the devil himself, Mr. Ivan Farrington. Captain Paul, just before we went to our break for our sponsors, I mentioned the fact that I wanted you to introduce the whole idea of shipping in the Cayman Islands, and we talk primarily about national bulk carriers, but there are other players involved in the Cayman Islands as well. Can you enlighten our guests on our whole listening audience on that, please?
I'm glad to. Yeah, nobody remembers J.S. Webster. James Samuel Webster was from Bordentown. He had a business here in Cayman, vessels and merchants, because the old Viking gallery was his building, his store. Many things. When he and my grandfather was in business together in the vessel, sailing vessel. When he moved out to Jamaica, he left all the property in South Sound, the Websters, that's where that's named from, the Websters estate in Smith Park there, in charge of and my grandfather was in charge of that. Because the people from West Bay, I can test, they were older people, that's where they used to come to cut tops to make to twist the ropes.
Okay.
And he formed a shipping company in Jamaica. He owned the Magister, the Smalland, the Arminda, the Huswick, the Collister, the Register, so many more. That's where the Caymanians started on steamships or motor ships. And that is where the Cayman people migrated to Jamaica, because when the ships didn't come to Cayman very often, so the crew and the officers and they took their families to Jamaica, and because that was the home port. That's where this thing started. Because he owned the lumber yard, he owned the hardware store. He was a very influential man in Kingston. In fact, I am told that one of his sons, George was a governor in some part of India at one time. That's what I'm told now. I can't prove that, but I know that he was a very. Because you remember the old Caymania, when the Caymanian used to come, Caymania used to trade. She belongs to Webster's, the Collister. All of those ships. In the later years, he had the Azraelite and the Crystal. So he employed a lot of Caymania, especially the Cayman BRAC people, and those people got their qualification, their license in Jamaica on those ships. Captain Tom Dash that we were
Yeah.
talking about. He worked for them a long time because he told me this story himself. I knew Captain Tom very well.
Mm-hmm.
The largest ship they had was the Register. The Magister. The Magister. She used to go through the Panama Canal up to the west coast, up to Canada, the west coast of Canada. And one time, the chief mate on the ship is going and standing by. There's always on the bow. And this pilot came aboard in Panama in the canal and did not want to take the ship through because a black man was on the chief mate on the bow.
Wow.
But it was an Englishman captain, and he stood by him. He stood by Captain Tom. So it's a lot of people, and shouldn't say a lot of people, but people don't remember. That is the start, because J.S. was a big man in Kingston. He helped a lot of Cayman.
Did they own property on 7 Mile Beach area too?
They own a lot of property
Yes.
on
Yeah.
Beach. If I can tell you a story about that.
We're not going to have time for that now, Mr. McPhil, but we're going to jump right on that after we come back from the news. Folks, I want to remind you that you're listening to For the Record. I'm your host, Dorrit Connor. My guests in the studio with me this morning are Mr. A. Steve McPhil, Captain Paul Hurlston, and Mr. Ivan Farrington. We're going to take a short break for the news, and we will be back shortly. We ask you to stay tuned. Lots of interesting stuff for you to hear about, some things that you probably never heard before. Please stay tuned. We'll be back shortly. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. I'm your host, Dorrit Connor, and my guests in the studio with me this morning, we have Mr. A. Steve McPhil, Captain Paul Hurlston, and Mr. Ivan Farrington. And we're continuing our conversation with you on seafaring in the Cayman Islands. We had 2 callers before we went to the news break, and I want to thank those callers for being so patient while we gave you the important news, but we're going to take your calls right now. So first caller, good morning and welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, gentlemen. How nice it is to have you all back on the behind the microphones again today, and thank you. I'm looking forward to an interesting show.
Good morning,
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Thank you. First thing I want to say is that your shows are always interesting. I'm telling you though that having these 3 gentlemen on is certainly nothing but something to look forward to, and we thank them for their time and everything. So I'm expecting with interesting things from them again today. The one thing I wanted to say first off before I forgot is that speaking of seamen and their roles and all that they have contributed to Cayman, and of course now we're dealing with the Webster family. I could give you a little bit about them, but I'll wait until later. And because I was just a little tot there, and sure, when I first met the father. But anyway, back to speaking of hurricanes and that, the last surviving member, I believe, of the very, very devastating hurricane that destroyed the Majestic, Mr. Vernon Lee Banks. And if he is up to it, Mr. Connor, it would certainly be nice to have him on your show.
Can you give me that name again, please?
Vernal E. Banks, Captain Vernal E. Banks.
Okay.
He is Mr. Roy Bodden's father-in-law.
Okay, Captain Vernal Lee Banks.
Yeah, I think he was 12 at the time, so he remembers quite vividly everything about, at least when I spoke to him last. So I want to just give you that name. And then the other thing is, on Radio Cayman last night, it was intriguing. I mean, I was spellbound by it. Carsley Fuller did an excellent job in putting that show together with all the others who are there, and Miss Anglin narrated it extremely well. And of course, there were contributions from Miss Sandra Gallego in her usually, fine form. She contributed, and I think there might have been 1 or 2 others whose names I forget right now, but who equally as well did a good job. It was
J.R. Hart, I
absolutely
think, was
great.
one. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing, and I'll make this short, but believe me, when the end of it came and I heard the comedians, the Fuzzy and whoever else, and Quincy Brown, and I thought to myself, after all that we've just heard, these guys just gave us a belly full of laughter. And may I suggest that each family in Cayman might want a copy of that in DVD form or a CD form, rather. And, what is it, $5, $10 a CD? It is worth having in the home so that you can replay it from time to time. And Radio Cayman, as usual, did a great job. It is the radio for variety, and that is the spice of life, as we always hear. And so, it is just so heartening to listen to a station that offers so much variety, Sunday through Saturday, and it is just something for everyone. And sometimes you're trying to decide, which show do I watch? This is so good and that's so good, so you keep switching back and forth. But anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, caller.
I hope you have a good day.
Thank you, and you too, and continue to listen to us. Do we have another caller still, Susan? Okay, no more callers at the moment. 1 second, we may have one. Yes, we have one caller, so we're going to get back to you, Mr. McPhelan. We've got to get Mr. Ivan to chip in at some point in time, too. Caller, good morning, and welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, OC.
Good morning. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good again this morning. Painful, but very thankful. And
Okay.
Good morning to Mr. Maxie, and he know me too.
Good morning, ma'am.
And Mr. The Devil.
All right, my name's
The
Ivan.
Devil. and the Captain Paul.
Good morning.
Yes, ma'am.
Paulson. Good morning to you all. About this last caller suggesting about getting DVDs and all that stuff there, about this Ivanhoe situation.
Mm-hmm.
But I did that yesterday with Sterling Ebanks on Radio Cayman Talk Show.
Okay.
And they were very glad of that too. I told them, I said, listen, when I get together and do that together then, because I would buy 2 out of my $550 a month that I get from government. I'll buy that too. And I also asked Sterling to check on the which he did, to check on the Ernest and Young report that I would love to get a copy of that, and he did. But he said that his understanding is that it's going to only be online. I said, Sterling, check it out again and make sure that that if you got to place an order or whatever, I'll buy you 2 out of my $450.
Yeah, because there are some people who don't have access to to a computer and internet and everything else. And I know that it is a pretty thick document, but if there are people out there who genuinely want it, I believe that the government should find a way of getting that, to them. It's important for them to be able to read it, digest what's there, understand it, and be able to discuss it as well. So we would certainly encourage that to happen. But I guess we would have to have some way of knowing how many people would need to have a hard copy because they don't have any other access to it. Are you there? Uh-huh.
I almost lost my trail then because you were going on so much.
Sorry about that.
I love to read. There's a lot they cannot read, but they can still read between the lines. Right?
That's true.
And then you know something? TV, I do fool with TV. And I do have a computer. Because I'm going to jerk my fingers with the needles, you understand? So I really want to copy that. And it's my cousin. It's on the deputy governor's website.
Yep.
And you remember me telling him, identifying myself to him when he was on with you?
Right.
That I am his cousin. I hope he's listening too. And tell him I say, make me a copy of that because I'll pay for it.
I'm sure he will, caller. I'm sure he will. We have another caller online now, so we're going to jump to that caller. Running a little bit behind schedule at the moment. Caller, good morning and welcome to For the Record.
Yes, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
I am just calling to say Radio Cayman is not for sale. End of story. Radio Cayman is for the people, and if they take that away from us, where will we be able to voice our opinion as Caymanians? Because we're not able to do that on the other radio station.
Yep, and that's why we have to rally behind Radio Cayman, and when it's necessary, if we have to show our faces and if we have to take to the pavement, we will.
I will be in the front of the line. Have a good day. God
Thank
bless.
you.
Thank you.
God bless. Mr. Markfield,
Well,
you were talking about the Websters,
Webster,
and
yeah.
after you finish, Mr. Ivan, I want you to relate your experiences with the Websters as
Yeah,
well.
we were speaking about Webster's. I was saying that Webster's also owned Myrtle Bank Hotel on Harbour Street in Kingston, and they also own a lot of a property here. And I think it was one of my ancestors were telling me when I was young, because they used to work with Webster. One of my uncles, and he was telling me about how Webster got a lot of land on the 7 Mile Beach. I don't think we called it the 7 Mile Beach then. I thought we called it Long the Bay. We called it Long the Bay. And old Joe Rooster Bird, that's living in Rock Hole, used to work for Webster. And Joe Rooster Bird owned a lot of land down the bay, owned a lot of the 7 Mile Beach. And this day he was coming home to his wife. His wife was named Emma. And he was coming home down North Church Street with this big old bicycle, big old rally bicycle, and he had a sack of cornmeal on the bar, and he had a sack of flour on the carrier. And when he got right down there by Mary Street and Harbour Street and North Church Street, where Mr. Bonner Russell lived, remember Joyce Hilton used to live? He started shouting out, Emma, Emma, and she said, Joe, wait till he get home and give him a book. Wait till he get home and give him a book. Boy, he was keep panting. He said, Emma, Emma. And when he got in the yard, she said, Joe, where you get that sack of cornmeal and sack of flour from? Boy, he say, Emma, we lucky today. Boy, he say, Emma, I'm lucky. He said, well, Joe, give him a book. Tell me what happened. He said, Emma, he said, I saw that piece of old sand on the ground along the bay to Webster today. He said, he paid me £2.10 for it. And he threw in a sack of flour and a sack of cornmeal. And he said, ha, Emma. Oh, he said, Emma, I got see how old Webster got grow yam and cassava with that old white sand.
And that was the thinking of the day, right?
Yeah, well, since you brought that up, let me tell you about the Webster's estate, how we acquired that. That was owned by the Hineses, and this one of the old man, he was a little bit lazy, didn't like to work, and his wife, she dressed in black all the time, hat, shoes, stockings, everything was black, and Mr. Webster sold a lot of that material in his store. She used to create it that for him, and when he couldn't afford to pay, that's how he come to get Webster's estate in Smith Market area.
Okay. Mr. Ivan, any experiences with the Webster shipping?
No, I don't know too much about it. My father shipped it with him from Jamaica. I remember him saying that he sailed with Steve Uncle Baker. He was one of the strongest men that was in the Cayman Island. So I remember him telling that story about
That's my brother-in-law's father, Pat McField's father.
Yeah, so I when I start going around Jamaica there, I know where they used to hang out. 42 Tower Street, Miss Ho Bar. And I was up there with Fred Conn and all them. They was work with Webster, so I never did sail with them, but that was real. That's where the Cairnbrackers left Cairnbrack to go to Jamaica.
So a lot of people went and worked with Webster.
Webster at one time, I think they had more brackers in Jamaica than what they had Cairnbrack. So that's where most of them went up there and started working with Webster.
Okay, we have one caller on the line. Let's take that caller now. Caller, good morning and welcome to For the Record.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning, Mr. Olsen, and to your guest.
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Well, I am on a different topic. Radio Cayman will not be sold, as the Premier rightly said.
Right.
Not under his watch.
Right.
We have to hold him to that. Remember, in the early 70s, Radio Cayman used to be on for a couple hours. Then they would come back on midday, then in the afternoon again. Radio Cayman keep us entertained and in touch with Ivan and everything else. Why now they want to sell Radio Cayman? No, Radio Cayman not going to be sold, and Mr. Premier said. no, it will not be sold under his watch, and we got to hold him to that.
Thank you very much for that. And you know, if we need his support now, we know where to call. If we have to hit the pavement, you know, we will do that as well.
Well, yes, I am a registered voter. When the time comes, we have to see what's happening.
That's right. And
2017 soon come again, OC.
that's true. Not far away. And nope, 4 years in politics is a short period.
Yes, thanks, and you guys have a good day and a good weekend.
Thank you. Thank you. You do
you.
too. Mr. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry. Okay. Mr. Macfield, when we look at revolutions that take place in countries, coups, military coups, what's the first thing that you find that the military will seize in a country? What is it?
Well, I'll let Captain Paul deal with that, because we were just speaking about that off the air, and he expanded on the number of things that the first thing that the invaders or the conquerors does to a country when they come in.
Yeah, history will prove this to be not my saying, but correct. You secure your airport, seaport, radio station, and hospital is the four most important things. When you control them, and your water, the fifth. When you control them, you control everything.
So that goes to show you how important it is to keep control of Radio Cayman. Now, we may not be under a military coup per se. We may be under an economic coup.
That's probably worse.
Yes. You know, under an economic coup. But, you know, as I pointed out earlier, we do not want to make all of the media be in the control of one entity, or maybe even two entities. That is extremely, extremely dangerous.
Yeah. For instance, I couldn't see the government in America selling C-SPAN and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It is
PBS,
preposterous.
yeah.
Yes, it's preposterous that you would sell the government information apparatus where the government has to inform its people about hurricanes, about disasters, about everything, and you know, the people who proposes these things have no idea, because they have enough money that they probably not necessarily care about the other people getting information and information reaching the other people, because they seem to don't have any desire for people to have information. I just cannot understand why they didn't put somebody else on that committee who was just an ordinary man on the streets also. You know, for their views to be heard. And it seems to me that Cayman has gone into a feeding frenzy for monetary power. People don't seems to feel that they're anybody unless they can acquire millions and millions and millions and millions. And when they acquire all these millions now and sell out all of the assets, the vital assets, in some countries, the private sector does not own transportation. They do not own the power, and they do not own the water. Those are things that the governments would keep for themselves, because the government has to control the movement of people, get people moving, whether it's by subway or by train or by tram car. And electricity is the power, and water. Can you imagine now that gasoline is $5.75, 85, sometimes 95 cents a gallon. And suppose they take over the water, and they say, well, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to pay $5 a gallon for water. What are you going to do? You'll be working just to quench your thirst. And every time that they get enough money, they will say, well, they need more money, they need more money, they need more money, and the government will not be able to control them. The same government who divest themselves of the assets that belong to the people. Water belongs to the people. It is the staff of life. It should not be controlled by any private sector at all. And it's preposterous to talk about selling vital assets like water, put it in private hands, that people can turn off your water when they feel like and control your life.
Yep.
OC, you need to check this out. I believe the water company or the water authority is one of the few government thinks just making a profit.
Yes, yes.
So why should we even think about selling it?
That's correct. I'm not sure whether or not that is mentioned in the E&Y report, but I have it now, and I'll be studying it on the weekend and bringing out some of the salient points, especially the recommendations that have been made. I'm told we have a caller online. Caller, good morning and welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Mr. O.C.
Miss Georgia, good morning. How are you?
Morning.
Good morning, Cap Paul. Good morning, Mr. Ivan. Good morning, Mr. Steve.
Thank you,
Good
ma'am.
morning,
Thank you.
morning,
Georgia.
Georgia.
Good morning.
As I just told Miss Susan, you all don't have enough time to give me to say all the things I want to say this morning.
But you go right ahead.
Radio Cayman, I mean, somebody's gone mad. Or a few people have gone mad. And if it came to a mark to keep Radio Cayman on the air, I would head it, even if I had to be in a wheelchair. I can still walk on my little skinny legs now, but if I couldn't walk on them, put me in a wheelchair and I'd be at the head. Sell Radio Cayman? I mean, if that falls to a private entity, you probably would not even be able to mention the word God on it anymore. Some months ago, some person called in and was complaining to Mr. Sterling because of people saying God bless you and all that. And look at how Radio Cayman stood by us during Ivan.
That's right.
And I'm no authority on any business concern, but I have been told by, I would say, reliable people that the water company is making money. So why water? You can go without food for a few days, but how could you go without water? Water, Radio Cayman, and then sell our land and put our schools on the private people. Oh, I have to go, all right? I try to watch my words, but I might really say something this morning that I might regret. God bless you all, and I already prayed that our legislators and other people who are in authority will not be too proud to ask God to give them knowledge and wisdom.
And courage.
They are courage, Mr. O.C. They need courage like they've never had it before. May God help them to remember they are there to take care of the people of the Cayman Islands and not the Koto, the people who have money. Captain Paul and I always agree on one thing. Greed is choking the average person in the Cayman Islands. Bye.
Thank you, Miss Georgia. Thank you. We have two more callers, and I just want to say that while we are a huge financial center, and while we rely on tourism, and we have a very robust tourism industry as well, we're still a small country of less than 60,000 people. There are those who are vulnerable and will remain vulnerable in our society, and we have to have someone take care of them. We don't expect that to come from individuals. Yes, we have good corporate citizens out there that will, and philanthropists, but that is not enough. We need to have the protection of the state, the protection of the government for people. We're reaching in this country where we'll have a very small percentage of people who own all of the wealth, who have all of the wealth, and then you have the 90% that have nothing. We have to be careful, extremely careful about that. Before we go to our callers, I want to remind you that For the Record is brought to you by the Auto Spa on Godfrey Nixon Way. You can stop by here in Radio Cayman or at the Auto Spa and ask for your $5 saving coupon for your next full service wash. Also, For the Record is brought to you by Champion House Restaurant 2 and Champion House Cafe. Champion House Restaurant 2 is located on Eastern Avenue, and Champion House Cafe at 1 Butterfield Place, formerly Comart. Champion House is a family-oriented restaurant where locals and others dine. We're going to take a short break, folks. Please stay tuned. We will be back shortly. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. I'm your host, Dorrit Connor, and my guests in the studio with me this morning are Mr. A. Steve McField, Captain Paul Hurlston, and Mr. Ivan Farrington. We're discussing, continuing the discussion on seafaring in the Cayman Islands, talking about some of those early pioneers. We've been talking about the Webster family this morning as well. We want to talk something about the patterns and all of those others who facilitated shipping and men going to sea as well. And we've been talking a little bit about the government's rationalization proposals, and in particular Radio Cayman, because we have an interest and a vested interest there. We have 2 callers on the line, so we're going to take those callers now because they've been waiting ever since we took the commercial break. Caller, good morning and welcome to For the Record.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I just wanted to say, and thank you for taking my call again.
Sure.
While I understand that government has not agreed to anything from this report as yet, the rationalization report, I understand that. They are not saying they're going to sell Radio Cayman, water company, or anything. But apparently some of these subjects, or some of these entities rather, may be a part of suggestions in the report from Ernst & Young. Mm-hmm. So all I'm saying is, while I understand that government now cannot be forced upon to say that they're going to take this, that, or the other, or they're going to refuse, yet I will say that I believe that as far as Radio Cayman is concerned, you're likely to hear very vociferously that people are not going to be happy that that station is going to be owned by any private entity. The second thing is, that's why we need to support Radio Cayman and make it, give them a lot of advertising. They do an excellent job, and I do believe that that needs to be, very seriously considered as remaining in the hands of the government. The other thing is, I want to say that one of your sponsors is,
which one? Auto Spa, Champion House?
Champion House. During the hurricane, people stood in line and to get a little bit of hot food, and Champion House and their cooks. I don't know who all the people who served, but I can tell you they did an excellent job. And I hope that the same thing will happen now with people who support them and patronize them, because we need to stand in line now the same way to get in there and support their business, because they really stood by us.
That's correct. You heard last night on the eye of the storm, Mrs. Dorothy Scott
Yes.
talking on there with the commercials and everything. So yes,
I went there yesterday.
Yeah, and they still serve good food. The other thing that I wanted to say was that you mentioned the Websters. I don't know a whole lot about them personally, except I know I was a very small girl because I was just starting to go out to swim with my sisters and brothers. And on this particular afternoon, to make it really quick, we were down in Northwest Point, and it's a beautiful iron shore land down there. So, as we were there, it was Mr. Webster, Mr. Desmond Watler, and Mr. Ira Thompson. So they were asking questions, and so, I was answering them certain questions. And Mr. Webster said to me, well, who do you belong to? And I said, well, my father is Mr. Ackerman, and my mother is Miss Louise. And so he said, and he said, I don't think I know that gentleman, Mr. Ackerman. I said, well, you know Captain Freddy? He's my grandfather. Oh, yes, I know Captain Freddy. I do. I know him quite well. So anyway, they went on and they asked me a few more questions. I told him. He said, "Well, do you think your father and mother would allow me to adopt you?" But I didn't know what the word adopt meant. But Mr. Ira Thompson spoke up and he said, "That young lady there, you asked me how often I've asked her father to let me adopt her." And he said, "Not either one of my children would be adopted." He said, "My wife and I can look after them quite well." So the other thing came up when the dentist, the same dentist that was lost on the flight coming out of Jamaica with Captain Owen Roberts,
Dr. Magnus.
Dr. Magnus, he was he wanted to adopt me and Pansy, who Mr. Dalmeen's stepdaughter. And so one day I went home. He said, "We must ask our parents." And then when he came back for the next trip from Jamaica, we could tell him what our parents said. So I went home. My father was fixing shoes, and I told him. I said, the dentist said, asked me that I must ask you if he'll adopt me, and he said, "Adopt you?" Say, when he comes back, you tell him I said that not my daughter can be found floating in no river in Jamaica.
All right, thank you, caller.
So anyway,
thank you.
Thank you very much, and have a good day.
Thank you. You
Thanks
do
for
too.
calling.
Caller, we have the next caller in line. Caller, good morning and welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you today?
Fine. How are you
Good
doing?
morning.
Morning.
I'm not good as you guys, but I'm good. I just wanted to say that as I went online and I glanced through the proposal that was made by Ernst & Young, and the first thing that hit me was the fact that in all of that, normally a good report or a good suggestion of a report would have the negatives and the positives. But this thing never said much about what would be the repercussions if certain things were sold. They never explain anything like that. It's always how much money you could make from selling all the land that government had and all these kinds of things. And I said to myself, it reminds me of going to a pawn shop where when you need money, you're kind of desperate for money, so you go and you pawn the thing, and then it's gone, and you don't know where you can get the money to take it out, even though you don't want to sell it. And this is the stuff that's going on with this whole thing. They talk about buying companies, selling companies to people. They would buy this and buy that. People are not going to buy a losing entity, something that is not making money for them. And my question is this, gentlemen. Why would we want to sell all of the land that is there, that it's in government hands? Are we not going to build new schools and new other things in the future, other buildings that we're going to need land for? And then by that time, the cost of land it would be so extravagant, you wouldn't be able to afford it. And what I'm saying to you, gentlemen, is this. What we need in this island are people who can manage these projects, these businesses the government has. What has happened to us over the years, we throw people in these positions because they're political supporters or they're good friends of the family or something like that. You put them in these positions, they don't know what they're doing. But they're considered, they're the bosses. And they have, I've noticed that in Cayman, there are large egos involved in this island where people get in a position and come hell or high water, they ain't going to change their position because they didn't think of the idea. And I'll give you a good example of what happened back in the early 90s. There was a gentleman from, this is talking about the dump, which we have been discussing. I understand they got 19, a member of a panel of 19, or committee of 19 members now looking after the dump again. Well, I haven't heard any reports what they're doing yet. But gentlemen, what I'm saying is this. Back in the early 90s, a good friend of mine, he was a long time friend, but I met him, and that's all I consider him a friend. He's a Canadian. His business is in this dump, this
All right, caller, I'm going to ask you to speed it up if you could, please, for us.
Yeah. Anyway, this guy offered government the equipment to do the recycling, everything that's from plants to paper. They were going to recycle everything. And all they were asking was that they would, for I think of 20 years, they would get use the material that was sold as payment to have this whole thing, this recycling plant. And that was turned down. Gentlemen, all I can say is this: until we get people that really desire to get this country back in shape, we will continue to be discussing these subjects over and over and over.
Thank you very much, caller. Thank you. Have a great day. Captain Paul?
This gentleman, what he's speaking, said, I confer a lot of what he's saying. But I want to make a statement here. Somebody will probably shoot me when I get out the door. But when you do not know anything about what you are proposing to do, people can come and tell you anything. You don't know. Mm-hmm. They can, and these professional salesmen can sell ice to Eskimo. They know how to do it. And boy, our people is so
gullible at times.
He's a consultant. He's this and that. They don't know he's just probably out of Sing Sing or one of those big prisons or somewhere. It's a crook. When those kind of people have nothing to lose. They can come and sell you any idea, but you could get a little bit of information, so good information from stupid people like me that been around and seen all of these things for nothing. But they won't talk to them. I'm speaking from personal experience because I offered to talk to some of these people over 8 years ago because this little sugar-head boy been around. I've been around.
A lot of experience.
And I met a lot of, what I'm telling you, I met a lot of good people, I met a lot of crooks. So I know how it works. I don't know everything, but boy, I can smell the crook a long way. And I would love to pass that up, but no, they don't want to talk to you. The Bible says a prophet has no honor in his own country. So.
And in all fairness, the Premier has said on this show that not under his watch will Radio Cayman, be sold. And we honor, we respect that opinion, and we certainly have confidence in that. But I don't think that we need to rest on our laurels and be complacent about it. We still have to agitate. We still have to push it. We still have to demonstrate how important Radio Cayman is to the Caymanian public. And we hope that we won't have to demonstrate that in the form of having to deal with another hurricane this hurricane season. We certainly wouldn't want that to happen. But we have to ensure that we keep the conversation going, we keep the conversation alive, and not to forget also that we now have government TV as well, and a lot of people are relying on that. You're seeing exactly how expensive it can be to get a cable package these days, and so again, the government TV is there, for free where people can watch. Mr. Ivan, you wanted to say something?
Yes, a lot have been said about Miss Gran and Miss Maudie, which was good, but we left out a few. Beverly Hennings,
yes.
Bebo.
Bebo.
If it wasn't for her, Miss Gran and Miss Maudie probably wouldn't have had a job because she was the one who had to get our passports. And she was staying in that glass house or the administration building all hours in the night and the morning to make sure our travel documents was ready. So I had to compliment her. I don't know if she been given any awards or anything, but I'm going to see the seafarers do something about it. And the parents, Mr. Buddy and Mr. Colin, is not enough said about them neither. So I can make Mr. Paul talk a little bit about them. But these people should not be forgotten because If it wasn't for them, especially Miss Bebo, we couldn't have left the island. And we got that police record and passport within days or a day or two.
Sometimes hours.
Hours. That's how important. But they saw the importance of the livelihood them days. Seamen was their livelihood. And if we didn't get her there, no money would be come back to the island. They saw the importance now. These days, to get a police record, I don't know how long it take, and a passport, something so.
How much it costs these days
How
to
it
get it?
costs.
And those days it was done manually too. Everything was done by hand, huh?
Manually, so.
And a shilling for a stamp.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we gone from. We gone backwards then with all the technology. We gone backwards with time is concerned.
Captain Paul, you want to talk some more about the Pandans?
Yeah, I knew Mr. Birdie, affectionate on Mr. Birdie very well. And people forget that during World War II, the important role he played in helping seamen to get off the island. I believe, that he was one of the men instrumental in the men that went to Trinidad and the volunteering. But I know for certain he shipped a lot of merchant seamen some of them joined the ships they had to go to Jamaica first in Bermuda, in the merchant marine, and all during his life he helped seamen, and he was very down to earth, because I remember his out on where we call the breakwaters, right out in front of the library, in the museum, I should say. That was a social club, because we didn't have any clubs or anything.
Yep.
And he used to come out there every night, and the men used to come gather there, and he talked. He was down to earth. And I approached him one night. I said, Mr. Bannon, I'm looking the ship. I need a ship. Oh, I say, you don't want no ship. You one of the Swanee boys. That's the company I used to work for. I said, no, I'm finished with them. I nearly lost my life there, so I'm not going back. And about 2 weeks later, Mr. Southwell came to Cayman. I went there and was interviewed and showed him all my qualifications. And I told him that was in the month of February, I think it was. It was still cold. I don't like that too good. I said I would like to go about the end of March. I'm applying for a job about the end of March, if anything. So in they had a chartered flight going out on Sunday morning. My cousin Alex Penny, she came up. She worked for Laxa. On her way to town, there was no telephone those days. She stopped and told me, said, Mr. Burda wants to see you right away. So I jumped in my old car and I went down to his house, and I said, boy, he said, Captain South fell in love with you. I said, what? He said, he wants me to send you on tomorrow. You got a job for you. I said, Mr. Bird, I can't go tomorrow. I can't. Oh, my God, what am I going to do? He said, take me down to West Bay. Let me see if I could find Aubrey Ebines. So I took him down there, and Aubrey decided he would go. And thank God it worked out good for me, because Aubrey went on this ship, and I joined her a month or so later. And when I was going on, Aubrey was coming off, because the captain was a guy from Estonia by the name of True. He didn't even like wear black shoes. So, I wouldn't have made it there. So that was Mr. Birdie and Mr. Collin. They were instrumental. It was them that kept this thing going. Miss Gwen ran the operation, but it was them that as Mr. Birdie told me one thing, because some of us had a little bit of problems sometimes, and he said when he was always present when Captain Southwell interviewed people, he said, if I couldn't say something good about you, I kept my mouth shut. I didn't open my mouth. So he helped. I said all during the war he was a competent authority. He was everything, some of everything.
Great. We're going to head off to the news headlines. That's going to take just a few minutes, a very short period of time, folks. Stay tuned. We'll be back shortly. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. I'm your host, Dorrit Connor. My guests in the studio with me this morning, we have Mr. A. Steve Macfield, Captain Paul Hurlston, and Mr. Ivan Farrington. I just want to remind you that For the Record is brought to you by Champion House Restaurant 2 and Champion House Cafe. Champion House Restaurant 2 is located on Eastern Avenue and Champion House Cafe at 1 Battlefield Place, formerly Comart Supermarket. Champion House is a family-oriented restaurant where locals and others dine. I also want to remind you that we have a new sponsor as well. For the Record is also brought to you by the Auto Spa on Godfrey Nixon Way. Stop by Radio Cayman or the Auto Spa and ask for your $5 saving coupon for your next full-service wash. Captain Paul, before we had to quickly go to the news headlines, you were talking about the Pantons. We were talking about the Pantons, and then there's another gentleman that you wanted to mention as well. So let's continue that conversation.
Yes, Captain Benny Borden, Ottoman. Most people would reckon, my age would recognize that red-faced Benny.
Okay.
He's the toughest white man I've ever seen in my life. He was a sailmaker. He was a rigger. A pilot. Any disaster vessel go aground or anything run ashore, Benny was the man that people came to look for. Mm-hmm. And before the war, it was not too many seamen and Cayman around the island, steamship. It was sailing vessels, those days. And when they started, the same Mr. Patton started recruiting men to go on the English merchant ships. Captain Benny used to hold classes in the town hall, instructing seamen about steamships. Free of charge. I have a notebook for my brother where he took notes of Captain Benny. Wow. But nobody remembers it. Okay. And also
his living, sorry for interrupting you there, Captain Paul, but his living relatives now would be like who?
Well, I think it's only one.
Valet now? Valet.
That was
Valet's Okay.
And he had two daughters, Ethel and Balloon. I think Balloon is the only one alive still. I think she lives in Port Arthur.
Okay. Yeah, she lived in Port Arthur.
So that's where Clarissa got his inclination for seeing, yes.
Yes, he was a tough man, and he had equipment too. He was just an exceptional man, but I said nobody remembers him these days. It's like some more of these are old men that went to the United States in the oil companies. I can name a few of them. The late Bill Benny, everybody knew who he was. His brother Harry was chief engineer with Texaco. His brother was chief engineer with Gulf. Later on, the Wood from Borden, I was chief engineer with Texaco. Paul Bush from South Side was chief engineer and port engineer. Captain Fred Tatum and Jim Chisholm from North Side was captain with Gulf. And there was one famous captain from North Side, Captain Lython McCoy. He was both sail and steam. It was Captain Culrose McLaughlin and this other McLaughlin, the late Steve Banks' uncle, and he was from Cayman. He was captain. He used to be port captain for East Branson Steamship Company. So Caymanians.
And Cully Smith, he was a captain also.
Oh yeah, yes, of course. It's so many.
Cully Smith used to teach navigation one time with Captain Tom, and they used to be down a bit by Bar Bay. Where are they making that?
Right. Tell them where Barbie is, because a lot of people hear that but don't know where it is.
Barbie is it's down on that little bay where those men clean the fish. Yeah. Where they're making that sidewalk now.
Mm-hmm. Now, was that the one right in? Because you had two bays there. One was right in front of Norberg's bakery, and then you had a red spot.
No, Bar Bay was where Norberg Bakery is in.
Right
red
in front
spot
of it. Right,
is where the
fishermen are now. Yeah,
fish, yes.
And the reason that they call it red spot is because the sun around there.
The sun came up red there.
Yes.
Yeah. And I guess it was some of the corals that was red corals were just off there.
Okay.
That's where it came off. But Captain Benny also used to be the one of the main riggers of the ships, and used to be on the careenage
that's right.
when they pull the ships up to
clean the
to
bottoms.
clean them and recaulk them. And he used to pull. Used to go down there to Whitehall Bay, where that used to happen.
And that was done by block and tackle?
By block and tackle.
They remove all the ballast out of the ship,
All the ship,
out of
yes.
the vessel, she float up, and then they put the block and tackle on the mast and pull them over, and they clean one side, paint that, then turn it around, and do everything by hand.
And talking about the pontons, you know, I don't think that people understand the role that they played. Old J.C. Ponton, who was clerk of the courts in the 1870s and 80s and 90s. I have some letters written by old Matthias Rich from Cayman Brock to J.C. Ponton, and they've had a lot of case about land there. So they were the administering class, and then they became the first commissioners in the Cayman Islands, and they administered most everything. The Pontons and also the Parsons, the Parsons. And the Parsons, the Parsons people.
One was a Custis too.
There was a Custis, Custis Parsons, and you know that. Looking back now, I think that we were more secure and we were better administrated when the Ponton family were the administrators of the country.
Sure was.
The Ponton family, and don't forget, they were also the purveyors of the men. They selected the men who went with the British Navy to Trinidad.
Yes.
And I had pictures of them with the young men. Some of those young men must have been 16 or 17 years old at the Presbyterian Church, leaving the island for the first time, going to work on the British Navy ships. And when you read The Forgotten Men of the Navy by Alden's uncle, Rudolph McLaughlin, when you read that, and you see that there's a guy from West Bay, I think he's talking about, who was a mine repairer. And can you imagine a kid, 17, 18 years old, going out and learning how to pull the mines out of the water to repair them? The mines are something that can explode.
Dangerous, yeah.
Dangerous. And there's also a story about this kid who was the operator for to detect submarines. And the submarines were coming into the harbor of Trinidad under the bottom of the ships as they come in to try to get through the protection that they had from the submarines coming in to blow up the ships that were taking the oil from Trinidad to go, for the use of the British. And the kid said, Captain, there's two beeps. There's the engine of the ship. There's another engine. Oh, and they says, you think maybe that's not right. And the submarine came right into the harbor under the other ship and torpedoed the ships.
Wow.
And one torpedo went up and didn't hit a ship and went up on the beach. And when the Pontons were always the people who were administering, and you see the reason why they had such an interest in the country, because they were the first developers of the country, modern developers of the country, and sometimes their government had to borrow money from the private people like Marions and Alvis Smith,
liquor store,
from the Alvis Smith, from the Smith family, to balance the budget, to pay school teachers, to repair roads, and so they were interested in whatever opportunity they could get for Caymanians to go out to make money to send it back so that the country could grow.
Yeah, and one of the things the government didn't do then was sell the land, right?
No, they didn't sell the land.
So I hope we learned from that.
I can remember the old man Pat on Mr. Albert. He was affectionately known, and boy, you were
called Birdie?
No, his father.
His father.
Okay. And he was a justice of the peace. He used to sit in the courts and Friday, courts was only held on Friday, and grand courts was twice a year. But when you were threatened to go before Mr. Patton,
oh my goodness,
boy,
and Mr. Lyons.
Oh,
and
but the last one was Teacher Hill.
Yeah, Teacher Hill.
He was a rough man. I'm told we have a caller on the line, and we've been holding them for a little while. So let's take that call. And our caller, good morning and welcome to For the Record, and thanks for being so patient.
Good morning. My name is Conroy Eubanks, and I'm calling from Cayman Brack.
Morning, Mr. Conroy. How are you, sir?
I'm just fine. I hate to hear Cayman Brack being left out of your seafarers conversation.
Okay, not deliberately.
But they, on your opposing station, one of the moderators mentioned about a month ago that the first black captain to sail into South Africa was from East End. There's another tidbit of information. I don't know if you've been told that, but there was also a black captain who was the first Marine officer, captain, of an American flagship ship that sailed across the Atlantic. He was also the first black Marine captain to negotiate the English Channel without a pilot. His name was Gerald R. McLean from Cayman.
Wow, that is great news. Any more you can tell us about him?
Well, I could only say that if you were to get into the Washington Post archive,
Okay, Washington
maybe you
Post.
can find the story on him.
And can you give us that name again?
Gerald R. McLean.
Okay, got it.
Godfrey McLean, uncle?
Say again?
Is it Godfrey McLean, uncle?
That's correct.
And do you have any idea what year it was in the Washington Post?
I would hazard a guess that was probably in the 80s.
Should be able to find that online. We'll look it up and give that information out to the public as well. Anything else you want to enlighten us on, sir, in relation to some of those people from the BRAC?
Well, I think I'll just hold with that one today, but I enjoy your show. Keep it up.
Thank you very much, sir. We certainly will, and thanks for calling. Thanks for listening in. And
have a great day.
You too, sir. Thank you very much. (1982). Okay, yeah. I'm told by Miss Paulette Conley that it was published in the Washington Post in 1982. So that gives us a better reference in terms of Googling it and everything else. Also, Mr. Ivan, you wanted to say something?
No, I want to tell him that Cameron wasn't left out. We were talking a lot about him being in Jamaica, sailing with Webster, so I guess he didn't hear that part.
And then, there, I don't want to take liberties with your show.
No, that's what I have you here for.
But,
I want you guys to do the talking.
But the Pantons were also very instrumental in establishing, and they established when the first naval base here was established, the secret naval base, Operation Ball Plate. They were the only ones who knew that the base was gonna, the Americans were coming. The Pantons and also Captain Roddy Watler, Inspector Watler, they call him at the time. And I would like just about Eric Caymanian to read this book. It's called 73 Days. It's by James Cyril Dina, and it says a mostly true story of the romance and history in World War II Grand Cayman. It's a true story, it's history, and in this story here is this story is about when the Americans came here to set up their naval base, and how the base was set up, and it also has the history of when the Home Guard started, because it's a diary here, and it says 1 PBY July the 23rd. This is 1941-42. 1 PBY 32P arrived North Sound, received 500 gallons of gasoline, and departed at 1400. Captain Robinson, British Army, and Instructor Commander P. Bracelin, RN, arrived from Jamaica via PBY 32P4 for the purpose of making a preliminary survey of the island prior to the establishment of a British military base. All of this was under the auspice of the Pantons. Brother Panton, Orman Panton, and all of the Panton. They were the administrating class. They administered the country. They were in charge of the government savings bank. They were in charge of the post office. They were in charge of the customs. They were in charge of most everything. And I believe, without a shadow of doubt, that the island was administered better then than it's administered today.
Yeah. And it's also a thing with the Pantons. They also own vessels.
Okay.
I remember too, cause when my grandfather lost his schooner, the Diamond 1932 hurricane, he uh, his livelihood was going to Muskogee catching turtles. He was one of the best down in the Maniwaki area. He was one of the, supposed to be one of the, if you could make the trip with him, because he was so disagreeable. Oh, Christ, he was disagreeable. And they had two, as I remember clearly, the Reward and the Wembley. I think they had another one, but I don't remember her name. But I remember clearly the Reward and the Wembley, because my grandfather sailed both of them.
And you said the Andersons also?
Captain Anderson.
yes,
Oh, yes, Captain Livingston Anderson. They owned the
Captain
vessel.
Anderson and his son, Captain Livingston Anderson.
He had quite a few.
He had quite a few schooners.
Yes,
One was the Anderson. You said one was the Panama.
The Panama and the Anderson.
And Captain Henderson that lives next door to him.
Carol Henderson.
Carol Henderson. I remember as a little boy when their schooners would come in, and they were dressed up in white linen, 3-piece suits, white, and they would for recreation they would be playing. I didn't know what it was then, but it was chess.
Yes.
And they were moving these little figures on the board and on their porch. The porch was open, stood wrong, and everybody would passing and looking and see what was going on. And you'd hear the hair say, you heard the people say, "Boy," and say, "What happened?" And say, "Boy, Captain Henderson got Captain Anderson stuck and can't move, can't make a move." That was all over the island, all over him saying can't move. And we were wondering why these men sitting down facing each other and not one saying a word. It's because they were playing chess, and that was a big thing in Georgetown. And those men used to dress up in their white linen suits. Of course, even if you had a store in those days, you wore a suit.
Oh yeah.
And stuff and things like that. Even if you came home from sea and went to a dance, you had to wear a suit.
Oh yeah.
And when seamen came home, they wear their best every day until they got their call again and went back out. Men were real gentlemen. I mean, men drank and had lots of fun. But to me, when as I was reminiscing with Captain Paul here, when you lie down at night in your bed and stuff, and you start going backward in time, sometimes I believe that those days were the best days, and we just didn't realize it then.
True.
Okay, we're going to take a break to hear from our sponsors, and then we have two callers who have rejoined us. So we want to try to do all of that. Not sure that we'll get it done before 9:30, so we're likely to run over a little bit, but I'm sure that the listening audience will enjoy it as well. So first of all, I want to remind you that For the Record is brought to you by Champion House Restaurant 2 and Champion House Cafe. Champion House Restaurant 2 is located on Eastern Avenue, and Champion House Restaurant and Champion House Cafe at 1 Butterfield Place, formerly Comart. Champion House is a family-oriented restaurant where locals and others dine. And For the Record is also brought to you by the Auto Spa on Godfrey Nixon Way. You should stop by Radio Cayman or the Auto Spa and ask for your $5 saving coupon for your next full-service wash. We're going to take a short break to hear from those sponsors, and we will be right back. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. I'm your host, Dorrit Connor. My guests in the studio with me this morning are Mr. Steve McField, Captain Paul Hurlston, and Mr. Ivan Farrington. We have two callers who have rejoined us, and we have another caller, so we have three callers lined up, and we're going to take them right now. Caller, good morning and welcome back to For the Record. Caller, good morning and welcome back. Morning.
Good morning, Mr. O.C.
Good morning again, Miss Georgette.
Yes, I rarely call.
That's okay. You're free to call back again.
But this book said the 3 days is I'm holding it here, holding it in my hand right now.
Great.
And why it's of that great interest to me? I'm sure Mr. O.C. you remember Miss Belida Merritt?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
well,
ma'am.
Her young sister, Mazico, who married one of those neighbor men. It is Maisie's son who wrote this book.
Okay.
And it also has my brother Bruce's name in it because she used to teach a little school, a little day school, and my brother went to classes to her. But this book said the 3 days, Mr. O.C., and and to your panel tells so much about the culture of how Cayman was in those days. The way that women and men acted toward each other and the care that parents took, especially of their daughters. It would do good or do well for a lot of young women to read this book.
Yeah, it sounds like that should be required reading in some of the schools.
I agree, Mr. O.C., and thank you for giving me this time again.
No problem, Miss Georgette. More than happy to. You take care. Have a great day.
God bless all of you there, and have a wonderful and a safe weekend.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Next caller, please. Caller, good morning and welcome back to For the Record.
Good morning, gentlemen. Number one from the block.
Hey, number one.
Sorry to call you back. I just want
No apologies. No apologies. Feel free.
This is for the public, all you business out there. Give this show more of your business so we can keep it going till 10 o'clock, not 9:30. More sponsors, come on, and keep coming. Keep the show going.
Yep. These gentlemen here, they're so excited about it. They would stay on here all day, and they have so much to talk about as well.
I'll listen to you too.
Thank you very much again, number one.
Bye.
Take care. Caller, good morning and welcome to For the Record.
Good morning to you.
Good morning again, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. I promise you this is my last, irrespective of when you get off, this is my last call for this morning. But anyway, it's very, very interesting. But I'm sure that the gentleman there would know my grandfather, Captain Freddie. Some call him Captain Freddie Norton, Dennis Freddie Banks. He's the man who taught a lot of West Bay guys navigation for free. But anyway, having said that, the one thing I wanted to say about him was, you guys may recall that there was, I just heard he and my father and others gathered around talking. So a lot of what I know is what I've heard them talking about. But one of the things was a ship that had been, torpedoed just off the southwest of Grand Cayman. And I recall my grandfather talking about some of these men from Georgetown getting word down to him that there were a group of people going out on a boat or on a vessel or vessels that were going to try to assist those individuals. You may recall that. The other thing is that, speaking of the Pantons, my sister Glennis, I think some of you will remember her, big, beautiful eyes, very attractive young lady, who was, along with Miss Gwen, the first secretary that Mr. Bertie Panton had. I recall the conversation between my mother and dad, and my dad insisted he did not want his daughter in no office with no man. And my mother, in her gentle way, said, well, Papa, she's so bright. She knows how to type and all. Do you want her to keep a shop or just get married and have children? Well, he considered it, and she was Mr. Panton's first secretary as such. So some of you guys may remember my sister Glennis, who later left there and went to work with Mr. Vassal Johnson, or rather, I think first she was Mr. Eddie Parsons, and then Mr. Vassal Johnson in the little office where this market used to be, and you will recall that. But I was just wondering if you guys had any interaction with my sister in the office there, and whether you recall this ship that was torpedoed off southwest coast of Cayman.
Okay, Captain Paul, and then Mr. Ivan after.
Yes, I recall that. I was in school when we heard the explosion, and we all went out on the beach, and we seen the big fireball and the black smoke. That was a United Fruit Company ship, Camiagua. And later that evening, the Samboco went out and rescued the men and brought them ashore. Two was burnt very badly. It was in the bottom of the lifeboat. That was.
I heard while we're talking about that. Yeah, and they had him in the town hall. Was it the town hall that they put him in?
Yes, because Cayman was very primitive in those days. We had no hospital or anything like that. That was, and I was fortunate. I knew that we're fortunate. I met one of the guys. I sailed with him from Honduras after, and he told me all this story, because the submarine, they came up, surfaced and spoke to them and told them their location and everything and wished them the best and everything, and so that was that's a picture that sticks in my mind. I'll never forget that, because everybody was out on the rocks, as we call it then, because it was no it was no dock. It was the rocks. That day, that night evening when the Simboka came in to see those.
Okay. Mr. Ivan, you recall anything in terms of what Miss Daphne was talking about and her relatives?
Yeah, I remember Glennis working with Mr. Bertapata and Marcel. I remember Daphne. Okay, she was a good secretary. So that's all I can say about it.
Okay, we're getting about that time now, so I want to give you all an opportunity to wrap up. I know, Mr. Macfield, you have to be off to court, but I think you still have enough time. So we'll start with Mr. Ivan, and I'll give you the last shot at it afterwards. Mr. Ivan, anything you want to say? And, of course, we'll be back on next Friday again. Hopefully, our plans are at least to be on here until the opposition can come back on. And after that, we may have to make this a show in itself, but we'll see about that.
Do you remember what the Premier told me? That he don't want me out of opposition. He want me in Well, I enjoyed being here, and the seafarers is still. I think the seafarers should take a more active role in preserving the hospital. Now we're doing a lot of things, and we're still donating to it, and we got the expertise to help run that hospital that it don't cost government. And we're still donating. So far we donated about $150,000 to bring down the health care. So hospitals should not be run by some private institute that will cost us more money, and we not get the service we should get. So keep this hospital how it is, and we can run it ourselves. We got expertise here, and we're having a raffle on the 6th of December. The tickets are going for $10. The first prize is $8,000. Second prize $3,000. Third prize $1,000, and $500 prizes. You can get the tickets at any member of the association and the RAF be at the Lion Center on the 6th of December. So support this worthy cause, because we does a lot of things for the community. We donate to the Cancer Society. Things are too numerous to use the name. So we are still working, and we should not be pushed one side. We the people that built this country. So you all have a blessed day.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ivan. Captain Paul?
Well, thank you for having me here, and I would like to say a big hello to my good old friend Henry Conley. I haven't seen you for a while, and I'm glad to know that you're listening. I wish you all the best, and you're a person that should never be forgotten, because you've been set a lot of money back to Cayman. You were engineer in those big ships, and we worked together at CUC, so I know you very well, and I wish you all the best, and best of everything, Henry. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Captain Paul. Mr. Macfield?
Thank you for asking me, Mr. Connor, and I appreciate coming here. It's something like I'm looking forward to. When you call, I stay up in the night and say, well, what am I going to say tomorrow that I haven't said before? Yes.
You're not a man with a loss for words, and information.
Yes, and sometime in the future, when after the stuff I'm doing immediately now finish, I'm going to ask Mr. Oria to allow me to impart my project that I want to impart with my colleagues here, Captain Paul and the devil himself, Ivan. We want to start a foundation.
Okay.
To help us to continue our customs.
Mm-hmm.
Our customs and our
heritage.
Yes, heritage, and we will be talking about that in the future. we think if we can raise enough funds that we can build another schooner, and that we can rig it and sail it, and that we can help these young people to show them what seamanship is all about, and so that they can have discipline and stuff. Because I don't care whether you're in the Army or the Navy or the Marines, I don't think there's any better discipline you can have than being on the sea. I think it's the greatest discipline that you can have.
Made men out of plenty boys.
Yep.
Exactly. So that I'm thankful for the show. It's a great show and it's a great station, and even if we have to blockade it to keep it going,
Chain ourselves to the door.
And you're a great host. You're a great host, and as I have said to you privately and publicly, I would like to say it publicly, your audience comes first.
That's right.
And that's very important.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Macfield. And I just want to say that I was thinking about this, and I said, should I say it or shouldn't I? And I hope people don't take it the wrong way. But the other day, you showed me a photograph of Captain Tom Diaz.
Yes.
Along with Mr. Ernest Patton and the Duke of Edinburgh.
Yes.
And when I look at that photograph of Captain Tom, he's a strikingly handsome man, was a strikingly handsome man. And I only say that if I were that handsome, I would certainly have the women, swooning these days. If I was as handsome as that gentleman was, that is a striking photograph, and a handsome man Captain Tom Diaz was. Really was. So, folks, I leave you with that. That means, I'm not handsome, not as handsome as Captain Tom Diaz, and I wish I were. But
you still got women.
I want to thank you for listening, to For the Record this morning. Remember, today is the 12th of September, the actual date. 10 years ago that Hurricane Ivan struck us. We have many programs commemorating the passing of or the arrival of Hurricane Ivan. I encourage you to continue to listen to Radio Cayman. Government TV will be carrying a lot of it as well. Loxley's show tomorrow afternoon at 3:30 also, which will be called The Ivan Experience. And I also remind you that we are our brothers and our sisters' keepers. There are people within these islands who are less fortunate than we are, and I ask you to hold out a helping hand to them. We also ask the government to continue to recognize that while we are a wealthy nation, the majority of people are still not as wealthy as others and still in need, and we need to take care of them. So the government in its deliberations and its decisions that they're making, they need to consider the people, because at the end of the day, that is what the government is for the people, and the government is the people at the end of the day. So we also have to bear that in mind when we're making decisions. Don't make them for commercial purposes, make them for humanitarian purposes. Make those decisions, for that. We are our brothers and our sisters' keeper. And Radio Cayman is one of the only entities that Cayman Islands people identify it with, recognize as their voice of the Cayman Islands, their voice. So we have to ensure that Radio Cayman remains in capable hands and remains under the ownership of the peoples of the Cayman Islands. And I leave you with the words and the song of Mr. Billy Withers, Lean on Me, because we have to lean on the Cayman Islands government as well. Thank you. Have a great day. Have a great weekend.
new pedestrian crosswalks by the Strand Shopping Center on the West Bay Road and at Cayman Bay on the Esterly Tibbets. Motorists, slow down as you approach the flashing yellow beacons in front of the crosswalk. Pedestrians must press the button to cross. This activates the yellow flashing lights both on the signs and in the road. Make sure to stop, look both ways, and listen for traffic before crossing with caution. Motorists must stop for pedestrians when these lights are flashing.